Howdy, folks. Kdog'S back here. I know I missed last week's movie of the week, and I'm sorry about that. I just kind of got distracted. You know, there were some things, other things I wanted to do. So, this week we're going to do a double feature. We're going to talk about two different movies. Blah 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 blah. We're going to talk about a franchise, basically, and we're going to talk about the first film and its sequel. And what is this franchise? Well, it's a franchise that it's difficult to categorize this franchise because it falls within three, I think, and it's a comedy because it has comedic parts in it, very, very comedic, like cartoon-like comedic parts. It's a fantasy film because it's got some cute and cuddly creatures in it. And it's a downright horror film. What am I talking about? How about Gremlins and Gremlins 2, The New Batch? We're going to talk about them today. So, for the first one, let's roll the trailer for Gremlins back in 1984.
Steven Spielberg presents Gremlins. Billy Pelser has a nice home.
Billy, is that you?
Yeah, Mom, it's me.
A nice job. A nice girl.
If you're not doing anything this Thursday night, maybe you'd like to go out on a date with me?
I'd love to.
And loving parents who are about to give him
You're gonna like this. No, don't shake it. We're gonna have to open it now. It won't wait till Christmas.
the most unusual gift he ever got.
What is it?
It's your new pet.
Come on, Barney, be a good dog. My dad gave it to me.
But there are a few things to keep in mind. If you expose it to the light, you may hurt it. If you get it wet, it will multiply.
All that from water? They got wet?
Yeah, plain water.
And most important, no matter how much they beg, never let them eat after midnight. Because when they do, they change. They become clever, mischievous,
What's going on here?
and dangerous.
Gremlins, huh? Little monsters.
Right.
Hundreds of them.
Well, I don't know, maybe thousands.
They've been here too. Billy, what are these things? Where do they come from?
Look, I know it sounds crazy, I know. But in a few hours, you're gonna have a major disaster on your hands.
Gremlins, directed by Joe Dante. They'll be expecting you on June 8th.
Okay, Gremlins, released back in 1984, produced by Steven Spielberg and directed by Joe Dante. And this film it's a real fun film to watch, and it's one of those movies, like I said, it's hard to categorize these movies because they fall within three different genres. It's got a fantasy element because you have the little character of Gizmo right here. It's kind of the E.T. like character, and he's kind of the cute and cuddly and mysterious creature that's coming with us on the journey. And it's a downright horror film because Gizmo packs a little secret. Is that he has this ability to reproduce, and when the creatures reproduce, they have the potential of becoming monsters if you let them do a certain thing after midnight. I'll explain what the rules are. And the third being, it's an outright comedy. The comedy that is performed in this movie are done by the Gremlins as well, and it's hilarious. It's like cartoon, Looney Tunes like comedy. and kind of like like that kind of stuff, And it's my favorite scenes in this movie is the bar and the movie theater. Because I think that those two scenes just go off the wall. If you want to see the downright comedy, that's the best pieces to watch. Because in that scene, because you see them at the bar, you have one gremlin that's got 3 cigarettes in its mouth, and you got one that's they're cheating at cards, so they just blow each other away. In the movie theater, is they just completely trash the local movie house, and they end up having gremlins in the projection booth. And the movie showing at the time was a re-release of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and they're fooling around with the projector. They get the film threaded through, and they just turn it on, and all of a sudden Snow White just starts playing, and they just start singing "Hi Ho." It's great scene. But yeah, the movie. Now, let's get into the synopsis. I just gave you my review of the movie, I think, or brief review. I think it's a really good movie. It's a very entertaining movie. But I'll explain what happened with this movie, because there's a little bit of why things are today that occurred with this movie. It actually started with this. The movie is about this boy by the name of Billy Peltzer, who he's your average young man. He's got a nice girl. He has a decent job. He doesn't have a decent car, but he still lives at home with his mom and dad. Everything's doing pretty well for Billy. And one day, this movie takes place around Christmas, so. The dad, in search of a Christmas gift for his son, he ends up going to this shop in Chinatown and trying to find a gift for his son, and he ends up stumbling upon this mysterious-looking creature. It's singing in a box. And he goes, "What is that?" The creature is called a mogwai. So he buys the little mogwai, takes him home, and Billy is introduced to the little mogwai, and he ends up naming him Gizmo. And in that first scene, the dad explains the rules, because the mom ends up pulling a picture, not a picture, but a camera out, and with a flash, and the flash blinds little Gizmo. Of course, and the rules that are explained is he cannot be exposed to bright lights. It will hurt him and possibly kill him. He cannot be exposed to water, because if he is exposed to water, he will multiply. And third, and the most dangerous one of all, is you never, ever feed them after midnight. Because what starts off as little mogwai, they eat after midnight, they turn into these horrible, menacing monsters. And so, needless to say, all 3 happen. And is run amok. They run amok of the whole community. There's some people that die, but they die mostly off screen. And I'm not going to tell you the whole outcome. You got to get the movie yourself and check it out and see what happens. But it's a good little movie. You just got to see what happens. There's things in there that it's not too scary. I wouldn't say it's really, really super scary, but there's some jumps. There's some stuff in there to make you go whoa, like that. But yeah, it's a fun movie to watch. Now, if you'll notice on the back here, this film was rated PG. Now, let me explain what happened. Gremlins came at a time when Steven Spielberg had made a household name with E.T. And at the time, he thought, well, maybe I should do show a little bit of the dark side to like an E.T. like character. And so what he wanted to do was like have the character have little flaws that could be really, really horrible. And now we know what came of Gremlins. But if you I guess listening to the commentary on the Blu-ray and the DVD, Joe Dante said that what they ended up with was not the original script. And what the original script entailed was much more horrific. It was going to be much more of a scary film. And when Spielberg reviewed the script, he said that this would be a hard R, and we don't want that. So we have to make it a PG. Well, they go and make the movie. And they make the little changes that Spielberg and Dante came up with to make it not as horrific and make it kind of a film that that parents and that families can tolerate. However, parents were still upset over the violence in the film, and they thought that the MPAA was really lenient on giving it a PG rating because of how violent the film was at the time. And so, and this was not the only movie. The other film was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Parents were complaining that some of the depictions in that film were too violent for PG rating. So Spielberg thought, he went to the president of the MPAA and said, can't there be a rating in between PG and R? Because that way it could satisfy just above PG, but it's not quite hard enough to get an R rating. And so that same year, the PG-13 rating was introduced. I'm not quite sure what the first PG-13 rated movie was. I think it was Red Dawn, the Patrick Swayze movie. I think that was the first PG-13 rated movie. I'm not quite sure. I'll have to, clarify that. But yeah, Gremlins just squeaked by with a PG rating. Now, on to Gremlins 2, the new batch.
Remember the last time? We told you not to feed them after midnight. We told you to keep them away from the light. And the most important warning of all, we told you to never, ever get them wet. You didn't listen.
They're mutating.
Sir, is the building on fire?
No, that's a false alarm.
Are you trying to panic New York City?
Absolutely not. So the monsters are real? I didn't say that.
Gremlins 2. The new batch.
Now, was that civilized? No, clearly not. Fun, but in no sense civilized.
Okay. Now, Gremlins 2, a new batch, is, to me, it's just as fun. Even though I think the film is a little... I think this film is basically a repeater of the first one. The big difference is that this one's set in New York, and they end up taking over this new highly interactive office building that that controls it has like a cable news network. It has it's built by this huge Donald Trump like character. But anyway, there's this film follows Billy and I can't think of his girlfriend's name, but I think it's Kate. I think Phoebe Cates, from both films. But in this film, they're getting ready. They're about to be engaged. They want to start a new life, and this film, it's set in New York. It's set in this high-rise building, and how Billy ends up back with Gizmo, because at the end of the first movie, he had to give Gizmo back to the Mandarin guy. And in this film, the Mandarin's shop is burnt down, and the Mandarin man is killed. And so Gizmo escapes it, and he makes his way to the building where by these two scientists, and they start doing experiments on him a little bit. But Billy finds him in the lab and takes him home, puts him in his office desk drawer. And while Billy's out for a moment, the janitor goes to get a drink out of a drinking fountain. Drinking fountain malfunctions, ends up spraying Gizmo, and he starts multiplying again. So we start all over. And the girlfriend ends up taking a fake Gizmo home. And so they try to get back to the hotel before they start eating and running amok. Well, that doesn't happen. They end up eating the frozen yogurt and custard, and end up mutating and taking over this building. And the laboratory plays a big role because they're making all these chemicals and things like that, and hormones. Like there's a sex-changing hormone to change a male to a female. There's one that where you could grow vegetables on you that you could drink, and then there's one that has sunblock in it, and there's also a intelligent increasing formula. One of the gremlins takes that and ends up becoming the brain gremlin, and it's voiced by Tony Curtis, I believe. Whoops. And is voiced by Tony Curtis, and so he's very pompous and very British-like, very British and pompous, and very intelligent of the certain monster group. And so, yeah, so they end up having to stop the gremlins again. So, basically, it is kind of a repeater of the first movie. Being that they have to, now the outcome is a little bit different. Some of it's not as intense. I don't think it's as intense as the first movie was. The second one, there is some intense moments, but I don't think it is as intense. I mean, they have a gremlin that does take a potion that turns him into kind of a spider-like creature. And that may be a little freaky to younger viewers, but now if you notice, this one is rated, you can't really see it because of the glare, PG-13. And it's not as, like I said, I don't think it is as intense. It does have a lot more humor in it, and I do think it gets a little bit more crude in the humor, because obviously you have the things with the sex changing potion and things like that. But yeah, it's still a fun watch. There's even a funny introduction with Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, and you gotta see that. And now, of course, this is the original that comes on the DVD and the Blu-ray is the original theatrical release. You maybe say, well, what's the difference? And back when the film first came out on home video, there was an alternate home video sequence. In the original theatrical version, there's a part where the film is breaking and they're showing everyone escaping, but there's a part where the film breaks and the gremlins are in the projection booth, and the man running the theater manager ends up hearing a complaint from a parent because the gremlins have stopped the film and replaced it with a really dirty movie of the 1950s. but they trim it down to where they cut it down to where you know what it is, but it's all the bad stuff's gone. But you know what it is. And so the manager ends up taking a flashlight into the movie theater, finding Hulk Hogan, and setting the gremlins straight, and then the film resumes. Now, in the home video release, when it first came out, that scene had been altered to where it made it look like the gremlins were fooling with your VCR, and it was going to eat the tape, and then switch channels where you would see the news, and it kept changing channels, and finally switches to this John Wayne movie that they pulled from. I'm not quite. I think it's the Cowboys that they pull this from, and various other John Wayne movies. And you hear an impersonator, "You varmints, get the hell off my spread," and he ends up having to shoot out with the gremlins. Well, I warned them. You don't need them in your TV sets. But yeah, that film, that version is not on the DVD. However, they do have that sequence as an Easter egg. So if you go to the special features portion of this DVD and Blu-ray, if you click on the claw, you should bring up this alternate sequence. Yeah, they're a bunch of fun movies. Gremlins and Gremlins 2, the new batch. So that's from me to you. See you later.